Sony, I did wrong. Take me back, please. Okay, here we go again. Sony A7S III versus Canon R5. Which is the better camera? Stay tuned, let's find out. So finally, the mythical creature that is the Sony A7 III is upon us. Oh my God, where have you been at least the last 3 years? Because that's how long people like me have been whinging for this camera. So thank you, better late than never, and I'm guessing that most people, yeah, you probably did exceed our expectations. I'm pretty stoked about the 120 frames per second in 4K. Really happy with that. And the dynamic range, they're my two favorites. But let's go on, let's continue. Let's talk about the R5 as well. I'm coming at this as a hybrid type stills and video shooter, probably preferencing more towards the video side of things, but I do have a passion for stills as well. So I'm gonna try and help your decision making easier if you're considering both these cameras, and like me, you do stills and video at the same time. So interesting time for all these cameras to be released. Hey, like there is a bit of a worldwide recession and these are expensive cameras, but I think it's kind of a bit clever because there is a lot of bored videographers and photographers and filmmakers out there that are just sitting around bored under all these restrictions going, where can I have a gas attack? Oh, a new camera, perfect. So I and all the other gear sluts out there have just been fanging, looking at all the reviews, talking amongst ourselves, and it's pretty funny. All the squabbles, overheating gate saga that's going on, it's pretty funny. We'll talk about that. I actually had the Canon R5 pre-ordered, but I changed my pre-order to the Sony, and I'll explain a bit why. The A7S III just suits my needs better. Did you see the dual ISO? After watching Gerald Undone's video, I just called the camera shop and say, can you switch those pre-orders around please? And they gave me $900 in return. That was the difference, so yay. I might get one of those fancy Italian gimbals with their leftover money, so stay tuned for that, subscribe, because I don't think there's a review on there. Brendan Lai uses the bigger one. This is the smaller one, which can be used because Sony cameras use smaller lenses. What I found interesting in all this is that Sony and Canon kind of took on each other's characteristics. Sony brought out the mild-mannered, solid. People were saying, oh, they could have brought it out 2 years ago. But no, they wanted to get everything right. They wanted to not bring out a camera like the Canon, which has flashy specs and maybe is not the most robust camera. I mean, the overheating issue is an issue, let's be real. And it's a big reason why I changed over. I'm sure they'll improve it a little bit, but I don't think it'll ever work the same way the A7S III's camera will work and be resistant to overheating without crippling it. Who'd have thought the cripple hammer is back? It's like a little bit of a more subtle one these days. It was a bit more subtle this time. It's like a smaller, sneakier cripple hammer. So let's talk about those resolutions in the 4Ks. So I watched Tone Northrup's video and the comparison that he did between the R5 and the R6. And it seems like the 8K and the downsampled 4K are the ones that look good on the Canon. They look brilliant and they look better than the A7S III. But, here's the big but, they are the ones that have the recording limitations. If you want to record longer stuff, and if you aren't going to be paranoid about the overheating issues, 60p, 120p, and the no limit 24p, they all are pretty crappy looking compared to the downsampled 4K and 8K. Now with the Sony, you've got a really solid 4K 24p, 4K 60p, 4K 120p. They all look about as good as each other. There's not that shift in quality, which would annoy me. Okay, let's talk about IBIS. The Canon's is better, depending on your perspective. If you like photography, Canon's is undeniably better. But for video, that's where it gets interesting. The Canon's has the warpy stuff, and if you're using wide angle lenses like I like to do, that is annoying. The Sony has gone for more of a digital one, and the Canon has that too. So I guess you get more options with the Canon, but I'm not sure if you can switch them around independently at the Canon, and that might be an issue. Resolution. So I think it's obvious that Canon has the upper hand here. They have the RF lenses that resolve all those megapixels brilliantly. If you're really into pixel peeping, I'd say go for the Canon. But there is an interesting thing about the A7S III. 12 megapixels may be enough for you. If you're shooting portraits, street photography, probably even most genres of photography, you might be able to get away with the 12 megapixels. And guess what, little ace up a sleeve, have you heard of this software called Topaz Gigapix AI? Check that out, have a look into it for yourself. If you're needing to blow up an image and you need more than online publication, that might be a bit of a wild card for you that makes this a really great hybrid camera for you. I'm going to be doing a test of this. Maybe I'll get a 24 megapixel camera. We'll do 3 printouts, all 42 inches. One of a 24 megapixel image, the other one a 12 megapixel image, and the other one a 12 megapixel image with the Gigapixel AI software doing its little magic. Fairy dust over it, so it magically has more resolution. Another thing that you might consider with taking pictures is, do you take pictures in the dark? We do. If you look at our pictures on our 500px, maybe even half of them are in the dark, maybe even more than half. And that's just kind of our thing. So maybe the 12 megapixels will be a good thing if you're a photographer and you're a night walker like I am. This could be the biggest reason why Sony will always have a place in my heart. It's the dynamic range. If you want something to look cinematic, if you want something to look lifelike, and if you want something to look less like a phone, dynamic range is the thing that makes things look realistic and cinematic, and not like a phone. Sony, you've done a really great job here and making S-Log usable with the 10-bit 422, and I'm really happy with it. You're giving us the camera that we've wanted for when it comes to just like a great image. And this is another thing that spans resolution. It doesn't matter whether you're shooting 1080p at 24 frames per second or 120p shooting 4K, they're all gonna benefit from that extra dynamic range that you're gonna get on the Sonys that you're gonna miss on the Canon if you're about that cinematic look in your image and you don't want to crush the hell out of the blacks. You want to see into the shadows. You want to see into the less lit areas at night. Weight, they're similar weight. Sonys are a bit smaller, but the thing is that the camera body doesn't make that much of a difference. It's the weight in the lenses that will make the most difference. And I've said before on this channel, I like the prime feels, I like that weight close to the body. And I tried to ignore that when I pre-ordered the Canon R5, but it was really something that really made me switch, because Canon doesn't have any really lightweight lenses, do they? They have that little 35 1.8 and that's it. Sony, you have a plethora, wherever you come from, however you like to say it, of great small lenses. And people have criticized the E-mount. It's too small and it's not going to be good for this and that. 1.2 f-stops, but you get smaller lenses on the Sony, and that's what matters more to me. So if you care about weight and you want to carry a full frame all day, then consider that element because it matters. When you shoot as much as we do when we're in Japan, basically manic shooting for up to 16 hours a day, lens weight and body weight and the package, it matters. Audio, so you get audio in 120p and that's awesome. If you look back on this review we did on the 45mm Samyang, there was a really nice part in it where I was able to slow down this image and you get all this nice swirly bokeh off the leaves, and after that I was able to speed it up and Elise could talk to me. I mean, it's just flexibility. Highlight of your day to troll Christians, isn't it?
I love Christian photo shoots. I like their outfits.
And Sony has 2 hot shoe microphones that you don't need any wires, and for guerrilla filmmakers like we are, we need things to be not a fuss. That's really important. And we get that with these hot shoe mics. The codecs and how they edit on your computer. At this point in time, the Canons aren't too easy to edit. All these lovely people on YouTube that are testing these cameras for us, they're finding the Canon files pretty hard to edit. Watch as the videos unfold. Check out Max Yurov's channels. He's really good at informing us all on these things. He has multiple computers he tests these things on. If you're wanting less of a headache editing your footage and you want it to be fun, I think Sony is a clear winner here. There's something about 8K that I just feel like it's not ready for the market yet. It's not ready for people to use yet. I think it'll be another 6, 7, 8 years even. And even by that time, we need the world's infrastructure to change before these things are going to be viable. The delivery services of video are online formats nowadays, like YouTube, Netflix, other streaming services. When are people going to be ready for streaming 8K? Like, just think about that. The hardware's barely available, let alone the internet speeds and the software to even edit the video. So I just think it's a bit of a ways off, not taking away that recomposing and cropping is not a thing. I can think of some creative uses for the Canon, but realistically the amount of times we have our camera on a tripod and we're doing video is not all that much. And do you need to see 8K for all the pores and hair follicles on my head and face? No, I don't think you do. Dual recording. The Sony does this in a meaningful way. It can record the exact same thing. It can even do triple recording when it's supported from the Atomos Ninja, whereas Canon, you get only proxy files, and that's pretty worthless in my opinion. Can I just take a moment out of this and say, oh my God, we've finally got a flip out screen for a Sony full frame camera? Man, where have you been, Sony? And it makes this comparison a bit more apples versus apples. Just something simple like a flip screen with scrollable, touchy type interface. It makes these cameras a lot more even nowadays. So speaking of the Atomos Ninja, you can record RAW into the Atomos Ninja and it'll be in the full 4:3 with the sensor, and it's going to be RAW. Hello, all you manufacturers out there that make anamorphic lenses, it's a great time for E-mount lenses. When you get that de-squeeze effect on anamorphic lenses, that 4:3 ratio is the best for getting the most out of the anamorphic lens. So that would be really, really, really cool to do anamorphic on the A7S III. Don't think Canon has any options available for doing those anamorphic ratios. Another way that these cameras are more and more similar are the colors. The Sony has caught up. They're not holding back on giving us these nice colors. You know, like I was saying, all these camera companies used to have all their own idiosyncrasies where this was better in this regard, and that was better in that regard, and that was better in that regard. But now they're all getting more similar, and it's just like the few features that you value more, that's all it takes to be the better camera. They're both great though. Aperture Priority and shutter speed priority. Canon has neither of these, and I love using shutter speed priority. It's my favorite mode. For me, in my mind, I'm just like, oh, so many decisions and compromise I don't have to make anymore, and the gear can just do what I want it to do, and I don't have to think about it. I can just point this camera about what I want to shoot, and it's becomes more about the composition rather than being a technician. I want to be an artist, not a technician. This channel is all about giving you tools how to be more artistic and having this gear limitations and software limitations get out of the way so you can produce some really great video and photos. Lastly, speaking about the artistic vision, does all this camera comparison stuff matter? Ultimately, it doesn't. It a little bit does, but it doesn't. Elise and I and the kids watched Family Romance, made by the brilliant filmmaker Werner Herzog, who's been making films for over 40 years, before I was even born. He chose to use some crappy mirrorless camera. Throughout the film, the ISO flickers. It must be going between some brightness and darkness on the wall, or it's got a shutter speed priority like the Olympus, and it looks like a phone. It looks shithouse. I can't believe it. I was going like, does someone not have the integrity to say, Werner, hey, you need to check yourself. I know you wanted to be cinematographer on this film, but you needed to use a different camera, make a better decision. Come on, you can do this. At the end of the day, it didn't seem to matter. Would have it been better if it was filmed on a better camera? Yes, it would have. But is the film still great, and is the content still highly fascinating? Is the story so interesting that it almost doesn't matter to me, and it probably doesn't matter to other people that probably subconsciously go, that kind of looks gross. Subconsciously, maybe not vocalize it to whoever they're watching it with, but they're still like, this is a really interesting film about the psychosocial relationships in Japan, especially the family interactions and the culture. All that, you don't need a great camera to tell an amazing story. So if you're dreaming about this camera, and because of the socio-economic situation that we're in, maybe it's not the best time for you to buy something like this, and what you've got would do just fine. If you can't afford this camera right now, or you're just looking out of interest, that's okay. You can still create beautiful images on the phone or the camera that you've got. I haven't covered everything in this video, so leave your comments and questions down below. Please click like, and please subscribe if you haven't already, and check in with me. How you doing? Let me know in the comment section. See you guys, see you in the next one. Bye.